When it comes to self-development, no matter the method you use, the vital point is to practice. If you're ready to transform your life and claim the potential inside of you, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Vital Point podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Schechter. I'm a psychedelic integration and transformation coach, breathwork facilitator, and an enthusiast of personal growth. You have the capacity to evolve and bring your intentions and dreams into the world, and there's never been more access to so many incredible modalities that can help you on your journey. This podcast will help you learn simple methods you can use to transform your life and share the stories of practitioners who are doing the work so that you feel inspired to go and practice, because that's the vital point. Today, I am incredibly honored and excited to welcome Saemi Nakamura to the show. Saemi was born and raised in Tokyo and relocated to Los Angeles over 30 years ago to pursue her dream of acting. And her unwavering determination and hard work paid off as she became a successful actor, appearing in numerous films, TV shows, and commercials. She also became a published author, sharing her journey of personal growth and spiritual expansion, and her first book became a bestseller in Japan. As she entered her 40s, Saemi shifted her focus to self-discovery and empowerment. Through participating in a holotropic breathwork workshop, she had a profound shift in perspective and realized that true liberation could only be achieved by understanding her true self. This realization led to her becoming a certified holotropic breathwork facilitator, and with her partner, Michael Stone, they developed Neurodynamic Breathwork, which is an innovative online breathwork program. Saemi's quest for self-improvement continued as she discovered the groundbreaking theories of the theory of advanced world and fractal psychology. After studying the principles, she became a certified fractal psychology counselor and incorporates these teachings into her personal development program, which is 1/3 of the Neurodynamic Breathwork Facilitator training course curriculum. Saemi's story is a testament to the power of following one's passions, embracing personal growth, and never giving up on the pursuit of self-discovery and liberation. And I personally am really excited to have Saemi on the show because of the transformation that I felt from going through her program as part of my breathwork facilitator program with Neurodynamic. I found the work incredibly interesting, difficult at times, challenging, but creating a lot of internal growth and a lot of shifts in the way that I see the world and experience my reality that continue to unfold and integrate even to this day. And so this is a perfect opportunity, I think, to talk about Saemi's work, because this podcast is all about personal growth, personal transformation, and the methods that we can use to do that. And this is a really unique opportunity for you, the audience, to learn a very powerful technique that not too many people know about. So Saemi, welcome to the Vital Point podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah. So let's start with your story. So you came to Los Angeles to act. How did that come about? Did you always know you wanted to act, or?
No, I didn't. At that point, I thought all I wanted to do in my life was to try to be a good daughter, good student, good girlfriend, good colleague, good friends, and then one time when I was 20 or 21, I had a trip to France, and one day in Paris, I was just tired from shopping, and so I sitting on that stone staircase, and then just drinking Evian, watching people going by, and I felt this difference of energy people are carrying, and then it was so different from people in Tokyo that I'm used to seeing. And I asked myself for the first time, what is it? Why is it so different? And then it seemed like they are living their lives just to enjoy themselves, being themselves. And in Japan, I perceived the people like people are always working for their titles and the name of the school and honoring the company's policy and this and that. So I thought like, oh, how can I enjoy being myself? Because all I wanted to do until then was just trying to be good daughter, student, friends, girlfriends. So I was playing, acting a cluster of roles to please other people. So I was more dependent on outside validation to see my own value. It's like, that's why I'm not happy living in this lifestyle. So I started asking myself, who am I? Who am I? Because I thought I had a boyfriend at the time. So I thought like an extension of my past. So I am trying to be a good wife one day and good daughter-in-law and good mother to my future children. And who am I? What am I? And I was very scared because I didn't know who I was and what my life purpose was. Why am I here in this body? So I imagine like 10 years later, I have maybe 2 or 3 children, and then not knowing how to teach my children, future children, what is more important. What's the most important thing in life, and how could they believe in themselves, their potential, and then become confident with their abilities, because I didn't have any self-esteem and confidence, because I was always dependent on outside validations to feel okay about myself. So like, oh my God, what am I? Who am I? That really scared me. But that fear really drove me to push me to go out of my comfort zone. So I left everything and then came to America. And I believe I read a lot of people's success stories, and I read one actor in New York. He said when he's in acting and on stage and in a zone, he had the connection with the universe and all. And I thought, oh, that's what I want to have. So I came here to join, enroll myself into acting class.
Wow. Yeah, what an interesting journey. And yeah, it's such a big question of who am I? And I thank you for acknowledging that question can be really scary, especially kind of, it seems like your perspective zoomed out quite a bit. You saw a lot more than maybe you were seeing before. And yeah, that can be a very ungrounding experience. But you came to Los Angeles and you started to act, and you were successful with that. And then so how did you, what was happening between that and the breath work?
So I was super curious. I had no expectation at the beginning. At the beginning in Los Angeles, just I was learning English. So I didn't expect that I could become an actress to start making a living. And so there's no expectation. I just dove into this completely new life, uncharted territory. And so I was so curious, I was still young and ignorance of bliss. And so I was just so excited every day, just joining acting class and finding new friends, and started to applying to get agents and going out auditioning. So everything was so new, brand new to me, and exciting, and fulfilling my curious mind. So I was booking a lot of jobs at the beginning. And some of the very famous, prominent, Oscar-winning directors, and they found me like so interesting, because I was like energy, this ball of energy. So I was booking a lot of jobs and small parts, but I had amazing time. But then 5 years passed, 10 years passed, 6 years, 11, 15 years passed. And then I think I started not appreciating. I started taking things for granted. So I started complaining more and becoming more whiny and more demanding in my mind, and started comparing myself. Yes, I think before I had nobody to compare myself with. I was like a fresh off the boat and was so curious, and then I had no expectation because I thought I was going to go back to Tokyo and get married to my old boyfriend at the time. So I had no expectation, but then one point I started making living through acting, and I put myself on the start line with other Asian American actresses to compete with. So I started comparing myself with other people, and then become more and more judgmental and self-critical. And that was the beginning of downward spiral. I started comparing myself with others and became very envious and jealous of other people's success, and then negative, self-talk and narratives just really brought me down to a downward spiral.
Yeah. So you started to have some difficulties, and then how did you discover breath work like that? Because that sounds like a pretty transformative experience that you had.
Yes. So meanwhile, I read a lot of many self-help books, and I went to. I was making enough money to join all the self-help workshops and motivational seminars and energy healing workshops, and I got many certifications being an energy healer. But I always wanted to just heal myself, looking for modalities, and I put myself into years of psychotherapy, but nothing really helped me to create this permanent shift in my perspective, to start to see myself from different angle and start to value my life from different angle, and with different mind-made measurement. And so I struggled, and I even put myself on anti-anxiety medications and sleeping pills for over 10-15 years. And I had eating disorder developed inside, and then suffering, and my suicidal thoughts was hovering over my head, occupied my head over 10 years. So I struggled. So I was so desperate, and nothing seems to be working. So I was very desperate. And then this email popped out, and there was a holotropic breathwork workshop. And something resonated with me when I saw the title. And I asked the facilitator, what is it? What is it? But he explained to me, but I just couldn't understand what it is all about. But somehow deep inside, I said, I should go. So I attended, and I had the first so-called expanded state of awareness. I saw visions and colors and somatic pains, and then all sorts of different kinds of things that happened to me. And then, wow, I'm not just the body, this body. There's something more deeper and grander than my body. So how can I find out more? Get to know myself. So
Yeah.
that's the start.
Okay. Yeah. So you were searching for those things before you found breath work, but you didn't really have those experiences, or you were frustrated with and not happy. And then you experienced it through breath work, and you're like, oh, this is it.
Something,
Yeah.
because I had a knot during the holotropic breathwork workshop. I had a knot here, and then like it was so painful. I started crying because it's so painful. But I was told to push it, to release energy, release and push it, push it, and it's all crying, crying. And why is it so painful? And then that's what I thought. My thought, why is it so painful? And then this knot started talking to me, started
Wow.
answering my question. I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So that was the my first experience of internal journey of self-discovery. And then so I ended up enrolling myself into facilitator training course with the growth transpersonal training. And then one of the breathwork session during the training was game changer for me. The first session, I found myself, it was like a past life memory in a sense. I during the breathwork session, I realized I was in the body of this young soldier in medieval time, and then about to die in the battlefield, and then but this sergeant who became like the young soldier's father figure, he came to look for me. And then I said, oh, I'm still here. Take me home. Take me to base. But he found, when he found me, he just had this pale expression. And he was completely pale, non-expression, pale. And he just turned around, turned his horse around, and he rode away. And I felt like, oh my God, he abandoned me to die alone. And that experience was like, whoa, it was so tangible, almost tangible, real. And then I thought, after the breathwork session, I thought about it. Wow, it was just a very similar, the same pattern, dynamic of me and my father in this current lifetime. It's like, what does it really mean? Why my inner guiding intelligence show me that image? What does that mean? But my question was, but if my father saw me dying in this lifetime, he would have done something for me, because I had a strong notion about my father emotionally abandoned me and my mom and my siblings for his gambling addiction. So that was my story narrative at the time. So like, but even though my father would have done something to help me to, if I was dying. And so that was a huge question. Why? So I brought the question to the next breathwork session. And then 2 days later, I had second breathwork session. And then I saw exactly the same battlefield, the same scene. But at that time, I was in the surgeon's body, riding on a horse,
Wow.
looking for the young soldier that I really raised to be a fierce killer, fighter. And I was just hoping he would be alive. So somehow he was alive, so that I could just take him home and take him back to the base and heal him. So he could live. But from my surgeon point of view, what I saw was the young soldier was dead already. And when being in the body of the surgeon, I recognized the surgeon, a young soldier was dead. The surgeon's heart dropped. And I really experienced it. Like, he was so shocked, because the young soldier was such a fierce fighter, he couldn't believe it until he saw with his own eyes. So when I experienced that his heart dropped, that was the moment I realized that my father never abandoned me.
Wow.
I was the one made him disappointed, because I shut down my heart when I was a young child. Then I pushed him away. I rejected his love. And even I was leaving Tokyo for Los Angeles, coming to Los Angeles, I didn't even bother say goodbye to him. I lived in his house 24 years in eating the food he provided. And I never thanked him. And I was the one, realized I was the one, didn't know any better. And then I felt his enormous love and concern for me living in America by myself. So that was this amazing inner healing. Yeah, the understanding of I was the one rejected my father, rejected his love, shut down my heart because of my misunderstanding about him. And then because of this narrative that I created in my mind-made story. So at that moment, I realized, oh my gosh, the soldier and the sergeant, my father and me, myself, as I thought who I was at that time was just my interpretation. So the father, I thought he abandoned us, emotionally abandoned us, was my version of my father that I wanted him to be, so I could keep blaming him for my unhappiness and low self-esteem. And when I recognized that, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been living in my mind-constructed illusions, narratives. And then I realized, like, wow. But, emotions really colors our experience and enrich our lives. So the more I was emotional, the more my narrative became real to me. So that was the mechanism of mind and the mechanism of perception and projection. And I understood, like, wow, I have been a leading actress in my own one-woman show that I wrote and I directed and I produced. And I put myself as being a starring part in it. And like, wow. So next idea was like, how can I get out of this scenario and start really rewriting my own wonderful, fulfilling life for myself from logical mind, not the emotional. I call it child part. I mean, the emotional part of the brain I call child mind. So that's another quest that I put myself, and then started for that knowledge to pull myself out of this nightmarish merry-go-round scenario, and then keep staying away from it, and start to rewrite my own new life and world scenario.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your vulnerability. And, that was in a very intense and emotional experience, I'm sure. The second thing that comes up is, from time to time, especially in the context of this podcast, sometimes people will say, oh, well, breathwork, how intense could it be? And I'm like, you don't understand how life-changing and how transformative breathwork can be. And, your story really points to the capability, the capacity of breathwork to transform us and to have these really life-changing experiences.
Yeah.
So thank you again for sharing that.
Thank you,
And yeah, and then it sounds like you started to experience something that's very important to your work with theory of advanced world and fractal psychology through that breathwork experience, even before you were discovering that. Because like, wow, like to be able to step out of your own experience of reality, your own perception, and see through the eyes or the experience of someone else, that's a huge thing, you know, and you know, something that doesn't happen too often, but it's really this foundation of a lot of different beliefs of you know, of Buddhism. I know we're going to get into talking more about the theory of advanced world and how it fits into that, but that we're really, each of us is creating our own reality and the way that we see the world and experience the world. And yet we're not aware of that. Right. So what an amazing experience.
Thank you, Jonathan. And also, I would like to say, you know, experience in an expanded state of awareness, a psychedelic experience, that's just so amazing. We can get so much information and new concepts and ideas we can get. But also, like what you do, integration process is so important and valuable, because what would you do with those amazing insights and information and downloads you receive in the so-called expanded state of awareness? What do you do? So the integration process is just so powerful and important and valuable, yes, as much as the experience itself.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. And, you know, it's really the focus of my work is to remind people of that, because it's not just, you know, my joke is like, well, it's called breath work for a reason. You know, it's not like breath play. There's things that are work that are around that to understand it, to integrate the experience so that it's not the opposite, which is disintegrating, right? And it's just amazing to me. There's somebody that I've worked with who, you know, shared with me that she had, a holotropic breathwork experience 25 years earlier, that for, you know, I felt so bad because the facilitator, it sounded like the facilitator and the container that she was in wasn't held very, very well. You know, there wasn't a lot of explanation, or she didn't know that the experience could be so intense and transpersonal. And going into this expanded state of consciousness where she like entered this cosmic reality, it ended up being very traumatic to her.
Yes.
You know, and something that over the course of like 20 years, she's still trying to integrate and trying to understand. And when, you know, hearing her story, I thought, wow, that's, you know, I said, look, I'm so sorry that the facilitator that you worked with didn't prepare you for what could happen, you know, because yes, these experiences are beyond what we can really explain or expect sometimes. And I felt bad. I said, wow, like that's not a good facilitator that, you know, she said, we came out of the experience and I was like, I'm the only one that had this transpersonal experience. Everybody else kind of went back to what they were doing. And I thought, oh, gee. So it's, you know, it really, again, goes to show like A, the power of breath work, and B, like you're saying, like the importance of integrating those experiences and really trying to understand them and work with them. So thank you for saying that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. So what happened next? How did you find the theory of advanced world?
So I started writing. I do journaling and writing. So I wanted to keep the sensation that I am living in this mind-constructed illusion. How can I get out of it? So I started writing, because just the feeling and the thoughts will just fleet us. So I kept writing, And then I looked for any books, self-help books or spiritual books, and to remind me that I'm not just this body. There's something bigger than me, and I don't have to be stuck in this like merry-go-round, in a nightmarish, mind-made merry-go-round. And I looked for a book like that, but I couldn't find anything at that time. So I started writing. Just when I read it, it could remind me like, no, I'm not just this body. I'm something much, much bigger than this. So I kept writing by myself, but I didn't know at the time because how the mind or brain works. So I couldn't really map out that structure of what really happened to me, why it happened to me, and how it happened to me. I couldn't really articulate it well, but I kept writing and writing. And then I met the founder of Tao, the theory of an advanced world and fractal psychology, here in Los Angeles while she was living in Los Angeles. Yes. So when I heard the fractal psychology, the fractal was something like I was hearing the words from my breathwork participants at that time. And couple of people came out of breathwork session and said, I had this fractal image of this and that, fractal pattern of this and that. So fractal was not a familiar word. So I checked it, and then I checked out Mandelbrot's fractal patterns and equations, and then like, wow, that's interesting. And then one day I happened to meet this lady. She said, I teach fractal psychology, developed in Japan. So I go, oh wow, this is it. This is not a coincidence. So at that time, I already kind of had the notion that there's no coincidence in this world,
Right. Yeah.
in this reality. So I go, yes, I have to learn it. So I really, at the beginning, I had no idea what it was. And then it took for 2 years for me to, just sort it out my brain wirings to slowly start to really understand what it is. And I could explain it with my words. My brain finally became able to connect the words, to create sentence, to explain it in a most simplest way.
Wow.
Yes, and it was amazing. And I can explain what it is.
Yeah. Okay. I'm really excited for this. But before that, I want to mention just how incredible that is. And just like you're saying, that there are no coincidences, that showing up, the fractal getting closer in your reality and then meeting, that's one of the things that the theory of advanced world talks about. And so what an amazing demonstration of how this occurs. So yeah, so all right, I'm ready. I know the audience is ready too, so tell us about the theory of advanced world.
Yes. So to summarize briefly, the Tao teaches us that this world is a virtual reality produced by our consciousness. And Tao is a theory that reveals the mechanism of reality. So the basic idea of Tao is that this world is made up of the interpretation of the 5 senses created by thought energy. So this world is a virtual reality that consists of multi-layered structures that are repeatedly projected images from one's deep conscious mind. We mix reality and imagination all mixing up, and then we think everything is reality. But also Joe Dispenza talks about, our brain cannot tell the difference, what is imagination and what is really happening. So
Right.
Tao categorizes that only the parts of the outer world that are directly recognized by more than three senses out of five senses as my reality. So we set the rules to recognize what is my reality and what is my imagination. And then otherwise in otherwise it means like if I can only recognize something with one or two senses, for example, just reading books or newspapers or watching news, those things are just using like seeing and then hearing, listening. So those are less than my reality. Yeah, such as news programs, internet articles, and videos. Whatever you read and see on computer or smartphone, something you heard through other people. In other words, those are illusions and fantasy or imaginative narratives in your virtual world. So each one of us is the protagonist of one's virtual world, and the people that show up in one's world are created by the projection of one's deep conscious mind. The same concept was used in the movie Christopher Nolan's Inception. The main character, Cobb, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, is a specialist to conduct and operate a production to infuse a piece of information into his subject's deep conscious mind to rewrite the subject's specific semi-unconscious narratives to guide the subject to come up with a different desired objective in his reality. So there is a scene where Cobb describes to his newly recruited accomplice that everyone that shows up in his dream state, is a piece of element from his deep conscious mind. So dreams are the very activities of deep conscious mind, and realization of one's thought patterns has the same meaning as realization of one's dreams. And in Tao, reality is called a crystallized dream.
So to take it back to your breathwork experience, that going from that experience of you or in that past life as the soldier to having that perspective shift of what it was like for your father and realizing the difference between those realities and the way that you experienced it versus the way that he experienced it, and seeing something outside of yourself and how transformative that was. That, it's to me it goes exactly with what you're explaining here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is true. It is interesting thing is like, so we are the one projecting everything. So think about our brain as a movie projector. I don't know,
Yeah.
younger people know about movie projectors, but it's a movie projector. So if I don't have the film narratives, I cannot project it, or I cannot perceive it, recognize it. So think about the projector. Image of the projector is the picture image becomes bigger when it becomes further and further away. The image becomes wider and wider, but it's a little bit, fadey, and not clear. So that's the idea. So I projected my own film idea about the dynamic of my father and me, projected far away screen as my past life. And then I fractally projected that.
Right.
It's a farthest away. I
Yeah.
project. So it's a grandeur, epic. It's like an epic scenario, grandeur version of my relationship with my father. Very
Yeah.
dramatized, by the way, elaborated, dramatized, because the screen is bigger.
Right. Yeah. And this is to me totally aligned with Buddhist philosophy as well, that There is no objective reality, only the meaning and the reality that we are putting onto something. I use this example a lot with my meditation students of if I brought my grandmother to the meditation class, to me, I would see this woman that I deeply care for and deeply love and, treasure, especially because she's no longer living, right? So it would be amazing for me to have more time with her. Everybody else in the class would just see some old woman. They wouldn't see that specialness that I project onto her from my relationship with her. And they're not wrong, and I'm not wrong. We perceive and we have a different experience of reality.
Yes, that's true. Everyone's brain is wired differently depending on their conditioning, which consists of beliefs, unconscious desires, memories, etc. Therefore, even though people witness the same event simultaneously, they perceive, interpret, or analyze it differently. And not only your own experience, but also the experience of others is perceived and defined by you. Yes, the observer. The person is, for example, that person is happy because he or she is successful, or that person is unhappy because she or he was going through a tragedy, or I must help the less fortunate people because they might need my emotional support and they might be able to gain hope, or etc. And in other words, you are the one who determines the happiness and unhappiness of people in your world. So if you have been feeling stuck or stagnated or unfulfilled with your life and wishing to perceive your world and yourself in whatever way you would like to perceive it, it is most important to explore your thought patterns that you have been unconsciously using as the measurement to analyze and define yourself and your world. And until I started studying Tao, one of my beliefs was that Buddha was a special being. Can I start talking about Buddhism or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, until I started studying Tao, one of my beliefs was that Buddha was a special being. So he got himself enlightened. So I used to add many meanings to that character as an enlightened being, such as someone who is full of wisdom, always calm or euphoric, meditates all the time, does not see anything as a problem, thus never gets upset or feel down, always fulfilled and content, etc. So all these elements about the Buddha were that I wish to have and experience my projection, like I created my father's image before. And they emerged out of my imagination and desires, which means it was my fantasized version of who I wanted the Buddha to represent. And many autobiographies about Buddha's life has been published, and I read a couple of them. And numerous authors also wrote them about 2,600 years after his death, which means many elements of the stories emerged out of authors' imagination and fantasized guesses, like all other historical stories of the world. And one description about that night when Buddha got enlightened stuck in my heart for a long, long time. And it says, or more accurately, that it was my interpretation, as if the Buddha was becoming increasingly aware of attaining enlightenment that particular night. So my question was, how could he know that? What do I need to do to get to the same mental state or spiritual revelation? Because I wanted to be enlightened, so that I get to live my life joyfully and peacefully without any mental agonies. So, and because I thought about it for a long, long time, my brain finally figured out the answer to fulfill my curiosity. And my version of the explanation for why the Buddha knew he was going to attain enlightenment on that particular night was because he elevated his state of mind from where he was able to see his world from a different angle. It didn't happen like magic. After his 7-year quest for the knowledge and how to eliminate the suffering from the world, his brain developed to a degree where he understood that he was birthing and manifesting the very result that he had wanted to experience on that particular night. An awakening state of mind does not happen by wanting, hoping, or sheer luck, since it is an experience of knowing. And Siddhartha Gautama became the first Buddha who understood that the suffering that he had wanted to eliminate was inside of him. The people and the world he had wanted to save were inside of him, and all the answers were already inside of him. So everything, everybody, and every cycle of birth and death were all happening simultaneously inside of him. The outside world emerged, rejoiced, or suffered because of him. Without his awareness, nothing arose or dissipates, which means that the outside world was a mere reflection of his internal world. So therefore, an awakened state of mind is a human experience to perceive one's world from a brand new way, a different angle, as being the creator of all that is, instead of being dependent on the mercy of destiny, which is mental confinement, the very cause of suffering. So that's what I realized.
Wow. Yeah, I want to pause right there just to allow people to take that in. I have my own thoughts that are coming into this based on what you just said in terms of the different systems of Buddhism and how amazing they are. That there are some people that kind of stay right there with what you just said in terms of interpreting and understanding. And then there are other systems where, like for instance, Tibetan Buddhism, where they're saying, okay, now let's take that a step further and create that state that we want. It's like, I think the way that I understood what you just said is like, let's just remove all the filters and let's see reality for what it is. And then after you understand that, now you can put the reality back in the way that you want to see it and what you want to create and who you want to be and how you want things to show up in your life. And so, yeah, this is a deep topic.
Yes, Jonathan. And also, you mentioned at the beginning, when people went through my personal development program, some people resist and then got angry and resented and this and
Yeah.
that because it is much easier for us to take credit when something good happened to us.
Right.
We take it like, yeah, I was hoping for that to happen, or I really worked hard to get this, or I prayed for it so hard for, yes. So we all take the credit. Good things happen, but if negative thing happens, like Buddha recognized, the suffering was just emerged because of him. But negative things happens. Like, I never wished for this. It's not my fault. How dare he? And then
Right.
it is really difficult for us to admit or accept that even negative things we caused. And so we become a dependent on fate, or sheer luck. So that keeps us in a mental confinement, because to really liberate ourselves from just being in this body, I'm just this body, to like I am the creator of my own virtual reality world. It's like you have to take everything. Everything is a projection coming out, the inner pieces of me is just projected out there, and then just being magnified version, and then creating this reality. So we need to develop our neurowirings to really recognize that. And the Tao and fractal psychology is a great tool to really build these neural pathways, to start to recognize, oh, it's my creation, oh, my creation. So, oh, I don't like it, so I have to modify my thought patterns inside. Yes. Oh, I like it. So like, what's my thought pattern that I need to increase and enhance and start using more and more? So we can start to recognize this reality is created with my past thought patterns and then future thought patterns, elements of my future. So I can start to see that. And that's an amazing tool to live my life to the fullest. Yeah, at least aiming to
Yeah.
fullest to the direction. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to talk about. So if we all have this projector that which is creating our reality and fractally expanding from the mind outwards, one of the things that I remember learning in the in your program was that a lot of the base early parts of that projection is coming from our childhood experiences.
Yes.
And our childhood experiences when we were basically babies and not adults, that we didn't have the capacity to understand that the world didn't revolve around us, or that even as good as much as our parents tried, if they did try, and most let's say most parents are trying to care for their children as best as they can, but no matter how good they tried, at some point, because you're a child and a baby and you don't really understand the world, you don't understand that life doesn't revolve around you, that you're going to be disappointed, or that you're not going to get your needs met, those baby needs, those child needs. And so that those create some of these projections, which then continue to fractalize and project out onto the world as you get older, as they get stronger, entrenched in your mind, because the projection is getting wider and longer, from that original incident. Is that, am I getting that?
Yes, yes, that's true. So that is the inner work that I produce for the beginning of the personal development program, because we have all the conditionings. That's why we can move and talk and speak and have this human experience with 5 senses, because of the conditionings. But some of the conditionings that was really hardwired while we were little children, it's still playing out and operating, and then affecting our decision-making process, because the problem of this hardwired neurowiring and patterns, thinking patterns, behavioral patterns, when we came up with, developed while we were little children, was the nature of little children are dependency. So all the idea to get what I want is came from dependent point of view. So it always need other people, to fulfill my emotional needs. So my job is to have my clients or students and trainees to recognize that emotional grip of a child mind, which thought pattern came out of your dependency or extremely limited perspective when you were 0 to 6 years old, and then do you acknowledge that you're still using that strategy, emotional strategy, usually like displaying emotions to manipulate others' perspective for your own benefit, my own benefit, that is that what you are still using? Can you recognize that, acknowledge that, so that we can start to modify it. But that is a very difficult part for people to admit their shortcomings or wrong beliefs and wrong narratives, because like my case, it's easier to blame our parents for our unsatisfied feelings and unhappiness and low self-esteem. But from logical mind's perspective, life is something that I have to build. And confidence and happiness and joy of being is not something that your parents can give it to you or other people can give it to you. It has to build within, inside of us. So, but until this logical mind matures and then become more intact or take more leadership role, energetic leadership role in the brain, it is a really difficult thing to understand. And as from my breathwork experience, I recognized was that I had so much essences of being a victim, but also I had a lot of essences, energetic essences of being perpetrators. And because what I understood was that mechanism of mind is like, as soon as I decide to become a victim, the moment I assign someone else as my perpetrator, so I become a victim. So this energetic elements of being a victim and a perpetrator are both inside of me, myself. So for my clients and the students, it is a very difficult, challenging portion of to recognize their own elements of being a perpetrators. So that was a challenge. But if we all inclusively accept and acknowledge, then we can start to really understand the patterns, our patterns, conditioning, and hardwired neural pathway, which is not effective in working or preventing us from becoming the fully self-empowered myself to live my life to the fullest every day and contributing my ability to the best of my ability, contributing every day. So just to start to recognize this first is a very challenging portion of it, of this personal development. Yes, because
oh, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, because all the unconscious automatic pattern is like freeway, and compared to a newly emerged neural pathway. So newly emerged neural pathway is like a little thread. So yeah, if we don't tend it or just to keep reinforcing it, it will dissipate and die down. So that's why we need to be attentive and keep revisiting to reinforce it with a repetitive action plan until it grows and becomes stable enough to take over the old unconscious thought pattern. But child mind is not used to, really cultivating and developing and then patiently, compassionately, just to start building a new neural pathway at a time. So we're not used to it. So it is a little bit challenging at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. When Michael was on the podcast, he used a similar analogy of the highway and versus, a road or a path that you're just starting to build. Mm-hmm. And, what we're talking about here is really, really powerful. And the things that, that breathwork and psychedelics and Tao all have in common is this capacity for neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. Mm-hmm. And I can say for myself that the 6 months going through the neurodynamic, breathwork facilitator certification program was this huge amount of neuroplastic time for myself, because I was doing, practicing breathwork at least once a week. I was going through your program, which was a third of the program. And so, sometimes really feeling challenged to come up against these limiting beliefs or these victim mentalities and just step outside of myself and challenge those narratives and those stories. And at the time I was also doing, having my own, plant medicine work that was being interweaved in the middle of it. So there was this huge amount of change and growth. And like you mentioned earlier, and we talked about before we started recording, it was challenging for everyone at certain points. Like, I don't think that there was, I remember telling my partner, especially, there would be certain sessions like, wow, so many people got triggered during the session, or like people just really had trouble with this particular lesson. And then I remember when it happened to me and all of a sudden I said, okay, now I'm the one that's triggered, So, it is challenging work to step outside of the beliefs that we have, because like you're saying, the perceptions that we have and the beliefs that we hold based on those perceptions are hardwired into our brain. Mm-hmm. And it takes time and effort to create these new neural pathways. Mm-hmm. But it's also the amazing promise of breathwork and of, plant medicine and of Tao is that this capacity, this capability exists, that we're not doomed to have these beliefs and these perceptions forever. We can change them. We can step outside of ourselves and start to build new connections. Right. And it's so powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yes, in order to step out of our comfort zone and then observe it from, to have a bigger perspective, we need a distance to see what has been happening, how I have been trapped in my narratives. We need to have a distance. And to create this distant viewpoint, we call it higher vantage point, to see, from above, to see higher vantage point by expanding our perspective, is we need to increase neural pathways in the logical part of the brain. I call it adult mind. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to mention that this, especially with some of the things that I really enjoyed and I've been working to integrate from Tao and from Fractal Psychology, were not limited to traumas or the victim mentality or sort of like, why did this happen to me? It's also being able to create the reality that you desire, that you want. So to be more specific, one of the things that I found the most transformative about going through your program was this idea that the things that when things are showing up in my reality, it's because they're available to me. It's because my mind can imagine them that they're possible and they're showing up. So that if I see somebody on television, for instance, that it has some sort of success that I want, that's possible to me, and that the reason that it's showing up in my reality is that it's possible. And that as I strengthen those neural connections, those things start to get closer to me. Maybe it's one of my friends, somebody in a that's closer to me and more has more sensory connection to me. More than just seeing them and hearing them on TV, let's say. Those things start to show up in my reality as well. And the thing that really clicked for me within this was you saying, I have the choice of how I'm experiencing that, and that I can go from being jealous or envious or feeling like, because at the root of that jealousy is like, well, I can't have that. I want this, but why do they have it? And like hating on them, to celebrating them, to saying like, wow, this is amazing. Like, this is showing up for them. I can have this also. This is a part of my reality. Just their experience. This is also a part of my reality. And that thought, that idea has been so transformative to me, because I remember this one specific time where I was on a workshop. I was doing a workshop for with another breathwork facilitator, not neurodynamic, from a different modality. And he was talking about how successful their company was. And I remember, and he was talking about like, every time I open my phone, there's 100 messages and people that want to work with me, and all these things. And I remember having this experience of envy and jealousy, and really getting down on myself of, why can't I have that? What do I have to do to, here I am, I'm struggling to get a few clients and to have a few people come to my breathwork groups. And wow, this guy has 100 people that are knocking on the door. And then I recalled that lesson from the training, and I shifted it. And I remember thinking like, oh, I'm so happy for this person. And look at how amazing this is, that this person is so close to me. This is possible. This is showing up in my reality because it's possible. And being so happy and celebrating their success. And just the shift that created in my mind because that negativity doesn't do anything to accomplish the goals that I want or to create the reality that I want. So it was so transformative.
Thank you, Jonathan. That's great. Yes, that fractal psychology's main principle, core principle is your thoughts create your reality, and 100%, no exceptions. So when I start to wish for something, and then accumulated thought energy to a certain level will start to be manifested. So it starts showing up, what I want starts showing up from distance. And then the more I accumulate images and ideas and excitement, and then come closer and closer and closer. So if someone really close to us start having the experience that I want to have experienced, we should be happy. Yes, I'm next. It's getting closer to me, because sometimes other people's success reminds us that what I don't have yet, I haven't achieved yet. So it becomes a threat, kind of threatening to us. So I don't want to see it. So I wish, being jealous is innocent. What is the thought pattern? Like, oh,
Right.
I wish she didn't have the success right now. So that wish gets accumulated, and then the brain cannot, brain doesn't have a time, and then also doesn't have the subject of who did it to who. Brain doesn't have it. So I accumulated and created this character who didn't have that success. So then I ended up playing the character that I don't have the success that I want. Wow. So really just be careful what you wish for. It's like what kind of thought patterns you're feeding yourself and accumulating, and then unconsciously automatically manifesting. Yeah, so that's a great example, Jonathan. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and even just starting to have the awareness of these types of patterns or these thoughts, to be able to step outside of it and see it as an observer, as opposed to being completely in that projection, that reality, is so transformative.
Mm-hmm. So the hardest work that I present to a little bit more advanced and knowledgeable Tao students is that it's called apology exercise to their parents. This is a lot of resistance. It will happen, but if I am becoming the creator of all that is, which includes my parents and my siblings, my spouse, everybody in my world, the reality is my creation. So that's that really transformational shift can be produced by doing this exercise. But so we can start to really elevate our perspective, to start to see our parents' different aspects of their perspective. Because whenever we think about our parents still in the adult life, whenever we think about our parents, our so-called emotional part of the brain, child mind, gets triggered and activated. And all I remember was how I used to perceive my parents when I was 3 or 4 or 5, 6. So that needs to be really modified and build the lens, just idea how we perceive our parents from logical adult point of view. How dedicated my father was, how much responsibility he had. He didn't have a gambling debt. He had so much, he was making so much money, so he would go to mahjong parlor almost every single night, so he can just be away from his young family, noisy children, and he could relax and use his brain playing game and then having adult conversation. And he was also networking and exchanging information with adults. And so he could rewind himself and relax. That was his hobby. Like other fathers would play golf or buy cars, or it was his hobby, and how he was his self-care. So that next day he could recharge and then take so much responsibility and to strive to be a potent provider and protector for us. So completely new perspective or aspects of my father started to emerge. And now I used to hate my parents, both of my parents, but now I just feel of gratitude. And my father is my hero. I want to be like him.
When you started to talk about the apology exercise, I recalled that was the point in the training where I started to get triggered and I started to feel resistance, and I remember feeling, before that part came up, I remember feeling better than some of the other students in the cohort, watching them get triggered and because of my Buddhist background, feeling like, okay, I understand this concept. This is not triggering. I can hold this and be neutral about it, and it aligns with my Buddhist practices and my beliefs. And then I remember getting to that part and just getting, I was so angry and like, no, like no, I'm not doing this, and getting really upset. And so what we were talking about before, that was the moment where that happened for me. And yet over the last couple of years, especially, I've completely transformed my relationship with both my parents, and especially my dad. And it's been a process for sure, but it's also something that has been, like you're saying, like one of the most transformative things in my life is to go back and repair those relationships. And what you're also saying, that's like, if you're listening or watching this, like, let this sink in, that as you repair and change those projections, you're literally changing your past, which is also changing your present, which is also changing your future.
Exactly. Yes.
Like, you literally, are rewiring and changing the timeline of your reality and your experience.
Yes. So, and then we start to understand that, we being a consciousness before we were born, being consciousness, I set it up everything. And then I chose my parents to be exactly the way they have been, so that they will give me the experience that I needed to go through to learn about myself. And then even the siblings order. I'm a middle child, so freedom is my battle cry. But each siblings order has a very big meanings, and we can see patterns, conditioning, but also when we go through certain phase of our lives, we need to start to change those patterns. If we want to be a business owner, you cannot carry that thought patterns as a youngest child of the family. You have to switch. And if I want to become a business owner, my freedom seeking middle child syndrome needs to be modified and replaced as a firstborn child to be a leader and to go after status, build something meaningful and value. And so those are we can really understand those patterns and like inner beliefs and definitions and narratives, how they drive us to go to which direction. So that fractal psychology's method or tools are like, we set a goal where we want to go. And in order to get there, which thought patterns we need to eliminate. And then which thought patterns we need to increase and start polishing. And then, like you said, Jonathan, so somebody like, wow, I wish I want to be like him. Then we can start to learn that element or patterns from this person, your inspirational figure. We had a brain exercise, internal essence discovery procedure. Choose one inspirational figure and then see the elements and essences and what they did, what she did to become your inspirational figure. And once you recognize it, means like you have the same essence and idea, thought patterns within, because it's same thing is resonant, like inspiring. Wow, just your heart is just skips and then like starts singing when you think about the person, means resonating, vibrating, means like you have the same receptor to receive the same wavelength, means that once you recognize that that inspires you, because that you already have it. So that's what we start to look inside of them, and then remembering, when did I use this essence before? and produced my desired outcomes or did something nice to others. Did I use that? Yes, I used it. Smaller degree, but I did use it. So I have it. I have the same ability and essences like my hero figure. So I can start to really nurture it and cultivate it and refine it and start using it, and permeating it. So that's an amazing practice too, self-empowering. It's all about us, just go inside. So at the end, when we create more structured brain, and from the elevated vantage point, elevated awareness, we see there's no enemy. And there's nothing or nobody to blame and fight with. Or there's nothing that I need to protect myself from. This world is completely safe and logical and rational. As long as I have my set rules in my brain and I follow that, outside the world that I can project a very structured, logical, straightforward reality. So, and then like, wow, I can make anything happen.
Yeah. I think one of the most interesting things about this to me, and within this conversation and outside of it as well, is how, we talked about Joe Dispenza's work in the beginning. We've talked about Buddhism. All these systems and ideas are really saying the same thing. They're just saying them in different ways. And in that in itself is an example of what we're talking about, right? That like the reality is the same. We're perceiving it and we're calling it different things. So just like what you just said, you could explain that through manifestation of, okay, get the vibration, get the feeling of that outcome, and then align your beliefs and your actions to that outcome until it manifests in front of you in reality, right? Buddhism would say everything is the causes and conditions. So if you put the right causes and conditions in place, you can't help but have the outcome that you want from those causes and conditions. Same exact thing, but just explained through different systems, right? Quantum physics says everything is existing as a possibility, as a wave, until there's an energy that acts upon it that collapses it into a particle. Same thing. Right? Mm-hmm. But we're just explaining it through these different lenses or different fractals.
Yes.
This is, I can just geek out on this forever. It's just something that I get so excited talking about.
Yes. The manifestation is just so powerful. But, the only thing limiting ourselves, like, because of the victim mentality we have, it's just limiting beliefs that we put it on ourselves. Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's a virtual reality. And who's projecting it? Who's creating it? It's me. It's all coming from me, including my parents. And so everything is coming out of me. So, you mentioned that like a law of attraction. You learn through fractal psychology, you learn the mechanism of law of attraction. And then your passionate energy, like excitement of having it already, just to pray for it and put it out there for the universe, and then just imagine yourself already having it and enjoying it, and start using your imagination to just taste the enjoyment of it. And then what happens is like that gives the brain a signal that I already have it. It's already happening. And then brain just like, oh, okay, all right. The brain doesn't have a time. It's like, okay, it's already happening. We need to create it, the process. how to get it. And so the brain starts to creating and projecting and manifesting it. And then I will just, within this physical, state, I would take one step at a time with my wallet or, money, and then I just buy it and I get it for myself. Or something happens, opportunities, it's coming. Yes, we talked about that before this talk. Yes, we are an infinite field of potentiality, pure potentiality. So wherever we put our focus on, possibilities will emerge. And that's the law. Yes, that's the law. So yeah, create the image, goal setting, what you want, and then excited about it. And take one step at a time, whatever you need to do to get there. And then just keep excitement. Yes. This is the idea that this unswayed just conviction that I will get there one day.
Right.
Somehow. And I'm willing to do the work or whatever I need to do. Take one step at a time. So this diligent, work. And so I say a repetition and consistencies are the two golden keys to mastery. So that's how we can manifest anything we want to. Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Logically.
Yeah.
But emotionally, we, children say,
right.
wow.
Then, and then it's like going in and challenging and rewiring those child mind beliefs. I had another experience that I traced back to working with you maybe a few months ago. There was something that was happening with my partner where I got really, really triggered, really upset. And I had the opportunity to sit and think about it. Because she, instead of rejecting me or, getting upset, she was actually holding space. And we started to bring some curiosity into it. And I'm the oldest child. And as I felt into what was happening, what started to come up was, and there wasn't like a memory, but I could feel it. I could feel what was happening. And I was like, oh, this is the feeling of going from being the oldest child to having a sibling, to having to share, to not being the center of the universe. And even though it wasn't an adult memory of like, oh, I can see this particular image, I could feel it inside of me. And I was able to step outside of it and observe that energy, observe that, just that experience that was in that projection, and it was so transformative. So yeah, I know we've covered a lot of ground and a lot of things, in this podcast, but for the audience, I really can't recommend enough utilizing these tools and these systems that are available to you for transformation and for neuroplasticity. I can't think of anything that's more transformative. It's really, really deep and profound work, and it's hard to encapsulate that in words, I think.
But it is simple. It is simple. When we take all the emotions and emotional narratives and definitions, beliefs aside, it's very simple. We are just a compilation of thought patterns.
Right.
And then what I'm going to do is that I guide my clients or students to recognize the thought patterns, like thinking habits that has not been working. They have not been working for you. Yes. Right. And then accept it and because in order to change bad habits, first we need to recognize that we have that habit,
Right.
so that we can become conscious, bring it to a conscious level, and so that we can consciously start working on it or modify it to make it into more practical habits, and then more reasonable, practical, productive, proactive habits that we need to build one at a time, so that we can, those new habits and patterns would really drive us, support us to move forward with our lives, with our goals and aspirations. So that's the direction I always want to support others' growth and expansion.
Yeah. So you mentioned working with clients. Would you be willing to offer some sort of a practice or exercise that the audience could follow along just to get an idea of this?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like to do one simple brain exercise, but a little bit uncomfortable, to
Good.
recognize your unconscious block, like a thought patterns that hasn't been working for us. So that's what we can go and see it. By, you can have a notepad and a pen,
Yeah.
and then this is a little exercise, writing exercise. Metaphorically speaking, by doing this inner work, we can clean the field by pulling out old roots, removing stones, and discarding rotten waste, and cultivate the soil to sow new seeds to grow and raise, to produce abundance of healthy fresh fruits and vegetables that we can share with others. So we can clean our mind by pulling out old definitions, removing wrong ideas and beliefs, and discarding old emotional strategies and dramas, and then cultivate our mind to implant new ideas, concepts, and information to produce a new vision, dreams, and value, and consciously bring them to fruition. Right? So I'd like to talk a little bit about that, the power of writing. Writing is one powerful tool to recognize that all of the answers lie within. So there are only emotions and images at the unconscious level. So writing is a practical tool to bring unconscious material to the surface conscious level, so that we can consciously start to work on and manage it. Writing is one powerful way to elevate our awareness by autonomously thinking and selecting words to articulate what is happening in our internal world, which is a responsible and rational way to get to know ourselves, so that we can become conscious creators of our new narratives, which we can then project and experience with our five senses in the future. And before I present a brain exercise, I would like to talk a little bit about the mechanism of mind. So imagine there are multiple characteristics inside of you. Another way of describing it is that we all have experienced the different parts, personalities living inside of us, such as joyful me, curious me, fun-loving me, hard worker and serious part of me, empathetic part of me, analytical part, skeptical part, perfectionist, warrior, inner critic, inner judge, and pessimistic or optimistic, and so on. And including all the parts, I divide them into two distinctive parts. One is the emotional part of the brain, which developed while we were 0 to 6 years old, which I call child mind. And the other one is I call adult mind, which develops while we are moving on to adulthood and reaches its maturity around age 25 to 30, which is the logical, rational, and practical part of the brain, and which has a problem-solving ability. So when these two parts of the brain are well connected, and the logical adult mind is taking a leadership role and guiding the emotional child mind, then things are usually going well. But when these two parts of the same brain are disconnected and wanting to move towards the opposite direction, then conflicts start to emerge. For example, my adult mind thinks I want to get married versus my child mind feels, yeah, but I, I don't want to lose freedom. I don't wish to take care of my partner's emotional baggage. Yikes. Or I want to become a business owner because I don't want to work for anybody. And versus child mind thinks, yeah, but I don't want to take too much responsibility. And I still want to have enough time to go on vacation with a moment notice. Or my logical part thinks I want to start making a lot of money, but child part of me thinks, yeah, but I don't wish to work long hours or experience intensity and too much responsibility. And then so maybe I should just keep buying lottery tickets. Then, your desires could be canceled out because of this conflicting idea. It's like driving a car. You put a destination or goal into GPS and one foot on the engine pedal, but your child mind puts the other foot on the brake pedal because it has an opposite agenda. And that was emerged while you were a little child. What would happen is that you're not moving forward. All you do is consuming gas, but not getting anywhere. And consuming gas is in our physical state, consuming our energy and vitality. And this type of conflicts in our head could be a cause of fatigue or exhaustion or lack of motivation, and it takes away some clarity in the head. So move on to the brain exercise, like a centipede. Head part wants to move, willingness to take risks to move forward to create our desired future, but the body part, inner pieces, negative self-talk, dwelling in the past and worrying about the future, then your precious energy is consumed by unconsciously pulling in both directions at the same time. So this is the brain exercise. Examine the conflict in your head. Discern your unconscious blocks stored in child mind. So as you become more familiar with the type of the typical thinking patterns emerging from adult mind and a child mind, you'll be able to uncover some of your unconscious thinking patterns, which have been the unconscious blocks that have prevented you from moving forward with your life. So you can ask 3 questions of yourself and 3 questions to yourself and discover what answers your brain can come up with. But before we answer those questions, please choose one goal which you have been postponing making a commitment to and write it down. Choose one goal which you have been postponing making a commitment to and write it down. And then question number 1. What are your advantages by not deciding or avoiding to challenge yourself to achieve this goal? So you can write it down. Child mind has a tendency to avoid setting a goal because once you set a goal, you become responsible for making it happen. So for example, child mind's thought patterns to avoid setting goals could be, I don't have to work hard, or I won't fail if I don't try, or I won't find out about my inadequacies if I don't try, or I don't have to embarrass myself by making mistakes or not being perfect, or I don't have to experience intensity and the burden of having responsibility, or I will not get any sympathy or emotional support or financial support if I become successful and too strong, etc. So yes, and take an honest look at what you wrote down on your notepad and examine if that things that you wrote down have been the excuses for not giving yourself the opportunity to become more capable or to take a risk to produce your desired outcomes are there have been your excuses for not giving yourself permission to really take risks and move forward with your goals. So question number 2, imagine the disadvantage and downside that you will experience in the next 3 years if you do not commit to make your dream come true and develop your skills and knowledge in your chosen field. Yeah, in 3 years, what would you feel? For example, feeling regret or more fear and anxiety, or feeling powerless, or financial uncertainty, disappointment and anger, frustration towards yourself. And when you decide to dedicate yourself the next 3 years to achieve your goal and pour your attention and energy to accomplish it, your accumulation of thought energy will be projected and manifested in the outer world as right opportunities, right technology, right information or knowledge, or right investors, right supporters, etc. And you will be more confident and self-assured because you figured out what to do and how to do it and learned from your mistakes and build the ability to self-validate your hard work, which no one can take it away from you. So 3 years of focus and dedication can make a huge difference in a person's perspective. The person's brain can create and strengthen neural pathways, which makes the person perceive more opportunities and possibilities to choose from, knowing that she or he has more options. Then that will give him or her more flexible mind, which is true freedom. But if you had never given yourself the challenge to take a risk and become more capable of producing your desired outcomes and more courageous to step into the unknown territory to expand your world, you will be confined by your self-inflicted limitations and restrictions and limiting beliefs. All the successful people we admire didn't become inspirational figures by just feeling or meditating or waiting. They set up goals for themselves and have accumulated their knowledge and diligently enhanced their skills and proactively put themselves into action to produce the desired outcomes one at a time. But child mind has a very limited perspective, and it's all about emotions because it was not trained to logically think ahead and make a long-term plan and goal. So also child mind is not usually familiar with the fact that repetitive action and consistency are required to build our desired results. With that said, can I move on to question number 3? So what can you do today and every day in the future to move forward towards your goal? Your willpower or wishful thinking are not enough if you do not have a commitment and willingness to put yourself into action to change your unconscious behavioral patterns. The first action toward your goal is to decide. Decide what your goal is and write it down. But you did that today, yes. So that gives your brain the task of figuring out what to do next. And the best ability the brain has is to figure things out. So use it. Give your brain more challenge and pressure to figure things out. So write down one goal that you want to accomplish within a year or 2 years or 3 years and create an action plan and milestones that need to be accomplished by the end of each month. Yes, and this is more detailed practice. So, and you can start setting a goals at the end of each month backwardly from the date of your goal. needs to be accomplished. So if yours is a year plan, for example, then start writing down what kind of skills or knowledge or budget or certificate you need at the end of the 12th month, and what should be done by the end of the 11th month, then the end of the 10th month, the 9th month, 8th month, and so on. And within the first month, you can set how much you want to accomplish at the end of each week. Then you can set maybe 3 things to do every day. So dissecting smaller and smaller. And you can set 3 things to do every day. For example, one thing to do is that to build your physical strength, something to do to build your physical strength. And another one is maybe one thing to do for your self-care. Just have a good sleep or meditation for maybe 5-10 minutes a day, or take a walk 15 minutes a day, or eat good food, and etc. And one more to do is something to build new conscious habit. So taking a small risk every day, or giving myself a challenge, or cleaning, organizing, just a small portion a day, every day, and doing dishes right after each meal, or making my bed, or saving money, etc. To create a new habit. Before you assign yourself a new action plan, you need to first become conscious of your old unconscious blocks so that you can eliminate them, which means that you need to remove old patterns first, that have failed to produce your desired outcomes in the past, and start building. Create a new way to perceive who we are. That's our goal. Create a new way to perceive who we are, because the present moment consists of the combined result of all the choices a person made in the past. At the same time, the present moment that a person experiences, either consciously or unconsciously, will become a piece of the elements of her or his future. Right.
That was amazing and very insightful for me personally. I hope you and the audience take some time, pause as necessary, come back to this exercise. I recall doing that as well during the neurodynamic facilitator training, and it being very fruitful. So thank you, Saemi, so much for offering that and sharing that with the audience.
Yes, you're welcome.
This has been an amazing, amazing podcast. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your experience and your wisdom and everything about theory of advanced world and fractal psychology, as well as your own story. For people in the audience that are interested in learning more about working with you or learning more about theory of advanced world, where can they go to connect with you?
They can go to my website, saeminakamura.com.
We'll definitely put the link to that on the show page.
Now I'm having this series of 90 minutes live session. It's called the Tao Knowledge Dojo. So I would just simply share my accumulated knowledge through Tao and fractal psychology.
Appreciate what you are sharing with people and how you're helping them grow and transform into their full potential.
Thank you, Jonathan. I would just encourage people to sign up on my mailing list, because I'm creating more classes. And then also I announce a new blog post is posted. So please join on my mailing list.
Saemi, thank you so much for being on The Vital Point.
Oh, thank you so much, Jonathan. And then thank you for listening. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I hope you and the audience have enjoyed this as much as I have. You're probably going to take a couple of times to digest it, because we went over so much information, so rich with, with knowledge and with things that you can really listen to and contemplate and meditate on and integrate into your own experience. And definitely recommend connecting with Saemi to learn more. So hope you appreciated this. I know I certainly did. If you enjoyed the podcast, give us a subscribe, leave a comment, let me know so that we can continue to bring amazing guests like Saemi to the show. And most importantly, take this experience and integrate it and practice it. It's not enough just to listen or to read something and not integrate it. Take that practice, integrate it. That's the vital point. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, I'd love it if you leave a review. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Magic Alchemy if you'd like to learn more about transformation, integration, and how to connect through coaching, breathwork, and meditation. Remember that regardless of the methods you're practicing, the vital point is to practice.